This is Markanthony, author of the Lit series, talking to you about three-dimensional character development. With the sequel of Lit, ASCENT, coming out in another couple of weeks, I've had a lot of questions about character development and how character development and nuance and behaviours and how I do profiles of particular characters and how that adds value to the story. So I thought I'd talk a little bit through my process and what I do. Everybody is different, everybody has a different approach to it. This is just what I do to bring my characters out in a more relatable, three-dimensional, tangible way. Character development is one of the most important things you can do in any story. Your characters are your eyes, your ears, your mind and your heart through the entire event. Through multiple different plot lines that build your story up and make it more interesting and appealing to the readers. Because of that, you also have to remember that your characters, the closer to real humans they are, the better for everybody, and certainly the more believable it actually is. So in establishing main characters, what I did myself was relied largely on people that I knew. Not in their entirety, taking different things from different people that I actually had known and paid attention to. I'm a bit of a people watcher, not a stalker, because that's illegal. I will find something interesting about that person and I will build on top of them and put the character into them. With that, of course, comes a lot of natural habits and a general feel that that personality has for me in my life that I can then put into the story. So it feels a lot more real for myself as well. When I was writing the first book, Lit, I actually only had really two main protagonists that were both adults. I ended up putting a child in, and that was actually a bit of an afterthought. It was a bit of a play around. I didn't quite know how it was going to fit, but it ended up being one of the best characters I could have put in the story because it had a whole other aspect to the event. So when you're writing psychological horror, it adds a different dimension. So you're not dwelling in this state of adult issues without adding this innocent childlike element into it, of which readers can really empathize with, and you can really get to the heart of a story by following that character. Physical appearance, I didn't really make a list. I had in my mind what they look like. Of course, the ones that were based on people I knew was a lot easier than constructing an amalgam of different people, of different make-believe characters. However, I did always have a little bit of not overly prescriptive on physical appearance. I wanted the book to be diverse, I wanted the characters to be diverse, and therefore it does give a lot of room for the readers to actually interpret the character as it feels more appropriate for them, without saying, they're 5'10", brown hair, blue eyes. I wanted to make sure that it left a little more room for play for whoever's reading to get totally captivated in the story and add their own individual spice to it. Nuances really help a character. Nuances would be speaking, the dialogue, the words they would use, the words they wouldn't use, their mannerisms, little habits that they would have that you can plot throughout the story to establish that character, to make that character, without even realizing it, seem a lot more real, because we all have those little habits and those little personality traits and those little ways of speaking or little tics that make us known as people in a full rounded sense. So for those of you that read the first book and thought that Josh's dialogue was full of grammatical errors, he's 8. It's there for a reason. It just gives him that childlike mentality and that childlike presence. And it's certainly a lot more interesting for a writer, is that characters are often not entirely good or entirely bad, but none of us are 100% either way. We fall somewhere in the middle. Sometimes good people make bad decisions, and sometimes bad people do develop a conscience in certain situations that may trigger that conscience or that memory from the past. So it makes it a lot more interesting. Why are these people the way they are, and what damage is causing them to exhibit these responses to certain situations? As a writer, it makes it a lot more interesting to write. That, you know, you've got somebody who is generally a good person, however, some of their behaviors and some of their actions are not something that you would morally approve of. However, given this situation, this response was valid in that character's personality. If you think about it in that way, it makes it a lot more easy for you to see the characters as real people and relate to their decisions given those situations. In Book 2, ASCENT, which is due out in another few weeks, you'll notice that there is a lot more characters. A lot more characters have been brought up to be main protagonists. The antagonists are certainly on the rise. And that is actually a challenge in itself, because you have to maintain the integrity of the main protagonist while also bringing up those others that have significance as well and building on them even further. Character curves can happen at a time from a dramatic event, but also remembering that when you're talking about a character who has a significant issue that's lasted for a long time, their character curve is going to take a bit longer. They have a lot more to be persuaded out of. So I'd like to thank you so much for the support that has been given to Lit. The sequel, Lit ASCENT, is due out in another couple of weeks. Please see the links below for that, or I'll put the links here. And thank you very much. Continue supporting your local artists, and thank you and take care.